Hey everybody, it's Jay Urish, the Wolf Pilot, checking out here from Heritage Creek. I have a very special person I just met this afternoon. Flew out here with my Uncle Steve, and in fact you see 44 Tango in the background. Also with 420 Lima, a Grumman Tiger. Traveler, okay. And the pilot of the Traveler is a very interesting guy. His name is Duane Warren. And tell us a little bit about yourself, Duane. How long have you been flying? And
okay, I soloed up in Polidoro Air Park in Amarillo in 1975. Got my A&P license then. Continued flying through the years. Moved down to Kerrville. Worked across from the Mooney plant there for a few years. Continued getting my ratings. Commercial multi-engine instrument. Moved to Conroe, Texas in '79. Worked at Heliflight as an aircraft mechanic. I was able to meet up with Bill Goebel at that point, and his dad had a Grumman Traveler. And
that'd be Bill Goebel, HangaRatz.
HangaRatz.
HangaRatz YouTube, one of the best YouTubes going, and we're just over here and been invaded by the.
There are wolves that come through the airport every once in a while.
We've always sprayed for them, but they've come nonetheless. So back to your regularly scheduled channel. Remember, HangaRatz likes share, subscribe, and notify, which we've pretty much agreed that notify doesn't work, right?
Yeah, you click the notification bell. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Just cross your fingers, hope for the best.
So Bill's dad and I got to. He was instrumental in finishing up some of my ratings. I was able to acquire pulling in the monthly timesheets on the helicopters, so we would come out of Conroe, go down to Aransas Pass, hopscotch along the Gulf Coast all the way over to Houma, Louisiana, and then drop everything off in New Iberia. And typically we had hit 7 or 8 airports along the Gulf Coast, and there was one particular day when it was IMC the whole day, and was able to get in 6 actual approaches and a couple of them down to minimums, and flew through a few thunderstorms in the meantime. So getting down to what my goal here is, I realized I started getting a lot of airports in my logbook from the state of Texas. In 1998, I hired on with El Paso Natural Gas, flew transport for them for a while. Got type rated in the Lear 60. 9/11 Enron happened, and all of the toys went away, and so I transferred over to the pipeline side. And so from 2000 until 2003, I flew the Enterprise system, which was entirely in the state of Texas. And I still hadn't had the goal of pursuing all the states at that point, until we landed at Zapata down in the far southwest corner, and thought, wow, I'm in a pretty out of the back boonies airport. And then I thought, well, I'm going to see how many of these airports I can land at. So then we started changing our fuel stops with prices reasonable. Our overnights, we were changing those up a little bit just to acquire a few more airports in my book. And so then that job lasted through 2003, and then I upgraded into the Caravan, and I was given the Wyoming Interstate and Colorado Interstate gas system. And so I flew through the mountains of Colorado at 500 feet monthly, and we would finish our system up in Dodge City, Kansas. And then so from Dodge City back to Houston was strictly a relocating of the airplane. And so then once I crossed over the Texas state line, every airport that was in my flight path, I would do a landing at those. And then next month coming through, I'd move over 5 miles to the west, do all of those airports. Next month, I kept doing that to the west and to the east, and I acquired a whole lot of airports in the northeast part of Texas. And so I did that up through 2012, and then that's when Kinder Morgan bought us out, and I found myself back out on the street again looking for a job. A local cement company hired me, and I flew their Learjet for a few years, and then he was relocating the plane out to California. I wasn't going to move to California. And so then I was lucky enough to get hired on with TransCanada. And so they had caravans, and they had actually purchased the ANR system, which is the American National Resource System, from El Paso back in 2005. And so the chief pilot there thought, man, this is great. You've already got plenty of caravan time. You've already flown this system for the most part. And he actually hired me over my dinner table one night when he and his son and my son played soccer together. And so that worked out pretty good. Worked for TransCanada from like 2019 up through 2022, and I continued acquiring more airports that way. TransCanada purchased the Columbia system, which was based out of Charleston, West Virginia, and there were a few 182s that were stationed through Mississippi and another in West Virginia that they needed those aircraft repositioned back to Houston. And I told my boss, he actually told me to go get them and bring them back home to Houston. And I told him once I crossed over the Texas state line, can I? And he stopped right there and he says, go ahead and do what you want to do. So he basically gave me permission to hopscotch, and pick up some more airports. So Atlanta, Texas, which is in the far northeast corner.
KATA?
Yeah, correct. And so I was able to acquire some of those and finish up that section of Texas. And so then I ended up retiring in August of 2022, and I had about 80 airports left. And so I'm out with my Grumman Traveler. I flight planned a lot of things on my iPad to navigate.
I guess ask a couple questions here this far in. Your goal is to land at every single airport, public airport, or non-restricted,
non-private
airport in the state of Texas.
Non-military.
Non-military.
And of course,
what is the total number of airports that fit that description?
That is changing yearly. So to say that I have done every airport in the state of Texas may end up being a moot point, just due to the fact that a lot of public airports go private and some private airports become public, like Heritage Creek here. So
it's a live thing.
Yeah, so it's a continual research and editing of my spreadsheets that I've got started. And so this is roughly, if you want to take that and show that's just 2 pages of about 8. And so I keep track of the name of the airport, the identifier, the date I landed at it, the N number of the aircraft I was in, the closest town, which helps me keep track of the airport. And then I started another column keeping track of what the identifier used to be. And so when I decided to, my end goal is to submit this to the Texas Aeronautical Commission, just to say, hey, this is something I've done. I'd just like to, show you all of my efforts. And so when I started putting this into my spreadsheet, I was going back through my logbook and pulling up airports like 25 Romeo. So I started researching where's 25 Romeo. I couldn't find it. It had changed to a letter identifier, and I had not written down the name of the airport or the town closest to it, so I was at a total loss. And I had 15, 20 airports like that. Luckily, I had some old sectionals that I laid out and got a 6-pack of beer and just started going through, finding these airports. I had an old 1985 sectional, and so 25 Romeo was now Whiskey Alpha Romeo, Wharton. Zapata had changed over to a letter identifier, as well as numerous other airports.
Had you already landed those airports
Yes.
before they changed?
Right.
Okay.
So to keep from having to go back and land at them again and wasting a lot of time and gas, I was able to document that, yes, in fact, I have landed at them. And I know it's easy to just pencil whip things and say that, I've done this, but I'm doing the best I can. I want to be straightforward and honest with this. I've had a few different individuals write letters, flying aerial patrol on the pipeline. We always had an observer with us, and so I've had a lot of my observers write letters stating that yes, I was in fact with Duane when we did this, and he was adamant and had his heart setting on accomplishing this.
So, have you investigated the possibility of this qualifying for an entry in the Guinness Book of World Records?
I haven't, just because.
I mean, it seems so unique, and the state of Texas is so large that, forget jumping rope for 24 hours straight without collapsing of some body failure to go this many years in the pursuit of this goal of landing at every single airport in the entire state of Texas, which a lot of people they don't take into account how ridiculously huge Texas. If you leave, El Paso, how long it takes to get from El Paso to Shreveport or Texarkana, driving a straight line across.
Right.
So, I mean,
there was roughly 430 airports so far, and it kind of fluctuates in through there. Weiser Air Park on the northwest side of Houston is now a subdivision. Williams Airport on the north side of Houston Intercontinental, they're getting ready to bulldoze that up. There's a lot of airports that have fallen by the wayside. Andrew Air Park on the west side, that's now a subdivision as well. I finally got in and did Alvin, Texas. That was kind of a challenging airport. I think that was a 1,700-foot unimproved grass strip with trees at each end. And when I went over there in the Grumman, it was a little warm and no wind, and the pucker factor was up there.
Let's see, you had an airport we were just talking about before we started rolling film, one that was out Big Bend.
Okay, Tierra Lingua.
Tierra Lingua. And you said there's pucker factor and then there's Tierra Lingua.
Yes. Tierra Lingua's, it's about 60% encompassed with 500-foot hills close by. And the runway slopes from the northeast to the southwest at 2.7 uphill grade. And so I had to be on my toes on that one, and that's why I did it in the month of March, because there was no way I was going to go out there in the middle of the summer. I wouldn't be sitting here if I'd have done that.
So the hills run, so you have to fly in literally through the canyon virtually, and then drop down into the airport.
It's not too much of a slam dunk type approach. There is an open end off both ends of the runway. It's just that the southwest corner there is some rapidly rising terrain, and so the winds were favoring that runway, and I was light. I made sure that I was going over to Presidio then for fuel, and so coming through Tierra Lingua, I was light on fuel and baggage and by myself. So,
okay.
And I checked the performance of the Grumman, and it said it could do it easily. So, but I just wasn't quite ready mentally for that airport.
It's one of those "what did I get myself into" moments.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
So, how many airports do you have left on the list?
When I started out Monday morning, I had roughly 81. And so Monday, I knocked off 13. Tuesday, I knocked off another 15. And then coming out of Aldridge, which is just north of Abilene, this morning, I came across an electrical problem, and so I limped into HangaRatz here to get I was hoping for an engine overhaul, but I wasn't able to pull it.
Run silent, run deep.
There you go. So I'm just gonna have to pursue things another day. So I roughly have about 55 left.
55 left. Okay. You probably have no idea what the last one's going to be at this point. It's probably going to depend on your schedule and.
No, it'll be
wherever. So when you do that final last airport, is there going to be a big blowout party afterwards, or?
No,
It's just gonna be just
it's
check it off and you're done with that.
Tall, cold glass of beer.
It's all a cold glass of beer. That pretty much is the ending for any good adventure, I think. As long as you don't have to jump back in the cockpit within 8 hours.
Right.
Remember, 8 hours, bottle to throttle, or is it throttle to bottle? Whatever. We'll edit that later. But okay. Well, what a fascinating story. Now, something you did show me too. Keeping track of all these airports you've been to on this one map, and I wanted to pull this out. It's actually on both sides. Every airport you've actually been to has been highlighted in orange.
What kind of map is that? It's some sort of parchment.
Parchment, yes, this is what you use when you're butchering venison after hunting and you get done with it. And see, it's got an expiration date on it, so you can't use it after that date for wrapping venison or whatever.
So this is one of many maps that I use to keep things current. This map obviously doesn't have all the airports on it because north side of Dallas there are numerous grass strips, and they can't, for obvious reason, put all of those on a map of that size. And so I've got numerous maps that I keep watch on.
Don't try doing this at home.
I use 4Flight. I use AccuQuicks. I hit every resource I can to see what airports are coming in. There's one airport just south of Amarillo. Can you read that?
River Falls.
River Falls. I think that airport just went in within the last 5-10 years. And so in my research, I thought, shoot, I got to go all the way back up to Amarillo and land at River Falls. So yes, I've invested a lot of time and energy in avgas in this.
I wasn't even going to bring up the financial aspect of trying to pull off this unbelievable feat, which, I mean, I've never heard of anybody giving this a whirl, but hey, that just makes it that much more unique and interesting to be the one guy to actually pull this off. And
the Grumman Traveler works great as far as laying the back seats down and throwing the sleeping bag out. And I can't tell you how many FBOs I've slept on, couch, floor, a tent outside, just to save hotel bills so I can buy more gas.
well, man, that is just absolutely huge, and I look forward to hearing the end story, and maybe it could be 2 years, 3 years from now. I don't know.
Who knows? I'm hoping to wrap all this up in 6 months' time.
6 months?
Yes.
That sounds very ambitious.
If I can knock out, 10 airports a day, I can wrap it up in a week's time. So.
Okay. Well, hopefully you look me up, or I'll probably hear through Bill Grapevine, when you're a HangaRat and ratting out here at Heritage Creek, or ratting over at Foxtrot 69 where I infest the part I affectionately have named Hangar Town. Then I'm sure I'll hear about it, and I look forward to maybe enjoying a cold beer with you in celebration.
All right.
Anyway,
Jay,
thank you so much for telling us your story. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And we look forward to a follow-up, which 6 months. Stay tuned. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, although its performance is not guaranteed in any way, form, or fashion. And we'll bring it to you as soon as the final landing happens.